it's funny, their face is going to be hands because they always pay to their project. I know it's always been the gathering. He rarely drinks. Well, you don't get up. Really nice.
Good morning, everyone.
Just scoot over.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Shenandoah Valley. I'm Jackie Franklin, and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. We are a welcoming congregation committed to supporting one another in our search for meaning and in our desire to make a difference for the good. All are welcome here to share, learn, serve, and be your truest self. Together, we create a force that is more powerful than one person or one belief. We like to say we don't have to think alike to love alike. If you are new to UU, I encourage you to take note of our mission statement, which is on the front of the order of service, and our 8 principles, which are printed on the inside of the order of service. It's our tradition to welcome first and second time visitors or folks who maybe have been away for a while. And if you are comfortable, ask you to stand and tell us your name and where you're from. So, do we have any visitors today over here? Hi.
Hi. My name is Louise. I'm from Hendersonville.
Welcome, Louise. Any more visitors over here? Yes.
My name is Cecily, and I'm here in Black Mountain. I was here once in the fall, and I'm back.
Welcome. Anyone over on this side? Okay, do we have anybody else over here? Yes, go ahead, I'm sorry.
My name is Alexis. I am from Los Angeles.
Hello, I'm Sylvia. I live here in Black Mountain.
Welcome. Anyone else over here? Okay, how about on this side? Yes.
I'm Deb. I was here before COVID, and I'm here with my son.
Welcome.
Ed and Barbara from Shenandoah.
Any other visitors today? Okay, if you're interested in learning more about us, or you would like to receive our newsletter, we have white cards that are in the back of the pews. They're also out in the foyer. If you would like to fill one out, then we can follow up if we can get back in touch in whatever way you would like. It is our tradition to acknowledge with respect that the land that we are on today is the ancestral home of the Cherokee and other indigenous people. The Cherokee, through stewardship, understanding, and conservation, survive and thrive in this land. We acknowledge their enduring connection to their homeland. So if you will please silence your devices, we will begin our service. Can't see that. Now we will begin our service. Well, good morning.
Good morning. It makes a difference when we don't abort and chimes, right? Just want to make sure. So, you guys are the bouquet. See, I get to see you from up here. You should see yourself. Maybe one day we'll switch places. This is from the Passover Haggadah. May the light we now kindle, thank you, Diane, Inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, and to serve you, Spirit of freedom. And so, we will begin our flower communion. Did y'all bring flowers? How many people brought flowers? Okay. Because if not, we're going to have to do it again on Mother's Day.
And she still has some extra blooms in the foyer.
Okay. We can do it again on Mother's Day anyway. You know. Okay.
If I speak loudly, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Does that work for you? Or video, I prefer.
Video, I'll go
I
first.
can move the mic over if you want.
Yeah, video, I'll go first. Video.
Good morning. Good morning. I don't have a storybook as such this morning, but I'm going to talk to you, tell you a little story. And if any of the children would like to come forward and sit up here for the moment, you're welcome to do. And if not, you're welcome to stay. So good morning, my name is Susan, and I am the Director of Religious Education here. And it is my privilege to work with mostly the young people on any given Sunday. But we've started some adultery recently too, and I've had the pleasure of meeting some of the grown-ups in depth, and hopefully we'll be continuing that. I have a mouthy 5-year-old. At this time, actually maybe I'll tell the story first, and then we can work on the flower communion. So this morning's story is that of Reverend Dr. Norbert Chapok. And this is what he looked like at one point. He was born in 1870 in the place that we would eventually come to call Czechoslovakia. It is now part of the Czech Republic. And Dr. Norbert was born to a Roman Catholic family. And for those of you who maybe aren't as familiar with Roman Catholicism, this would have been a very formal religion. The priests were set aside from everyone else. They wore very, very fancy long robes. They did things like fill the air with incense. There were always lots of candles around, and the music was very formal, and the prayers and everything the priest would have said would have been in Latin, which means unless you understood Latin or knew what those specific prayers meant, you didn't even understand what the worship leader was saying on a Sunday morning. But Dr. Norbert was moved anyway, and he decided that he would like to be a priest when he grew up. But by the time he was 18, he didn't really love the Catholic Church anymore. So he became a Baptist preacher. And throughout his young life, he went all around the area where he lived. So this is a general sense of that area now. And so this place, Prague, would be kind of the area we're talking about. Thank you. And so he would travel as far over as Ukraine. You guys have heard probably a bit about Ukraine in the news over the last year. So he would travel all the way from this area here, Prague, all the way over towards Ukraine, and likewise all the way, over on this other side. Which I don't remember that. So he reached all over the place. And, his faith developed as he went along, of course. And over time, he found that he was maybe not as interested in the formality of the Baptist faith either. But he continued to preach, he continued to be a Baptist minister. And then during World War I, he got on the wrong side of some of the officials. And he and his family, he was married, and he had 8 kids. And he and his wife and his 8 kids fled to the U.S. throughout World War I. Sadly, not long after they arrived here, his wife died, leaving him with 8 children. Ooh, that can shake a person's faith, I should think. And he continued to raise his family here in the U.S. for a while. And not long after, he met a young librarian a woman named Maya. And she was also originally from the Czechoslovakia region. And it was through her guidance as well that his faith continued to get more and more liberal. And in time, they found Unitarians. And throughout his time here in the US, he became a Unitarian. And he and Maya decided to go back to their homeland, and they founded the first Unitarian church in Czechoslovakia, there in Prague. And in their church, they welcomed all kinds of people. It was a liberal faith for the region, and I guess really for anywhere at that time. And they welcomed all sorts of people. So people who had fallen out of faith as Catholics, or as Jews, or as Baptists, or whatever, were all welcome. And for the most part, they were very happy. But some people in their church felt like they might like a little more spirituality, or a little more formality, or a little tradition that was just their own. And so, 100 years ago this summer, in June of 1923, he formed his first, he initiated the concept of the flower communion, or they call it the flower celebration. And the idea is that everyone in the congregation would bring up to the altar a flower that they chose for themselves, their own unique flower. And they would bring it, and it would mingle in the vase with all of the others, this wild diversity of flowers, this wild diversity of thought, these different people from different backgrounds all mingled together in one vase, in one church. And then at the end of the service, everyone was welcome to bring a different piece of the flower home. So the idea is that each brought a gift, and each received a gift. And when you took your flower, you decided, you needed to keep it precious, because this was a gift someone else had chosen to bring, someone else's beautiful offering. And it was their own kind of special Unitarian secret. And so that's what we're going to do this morning. So if you have brought a bloom, I invite you now to come up and add to our lovely bouquet. And whether you brought a bloom or not, you are welcome to gather one as you go, because we have this.
Kind of bottleneck. Here's your flourish. Very nice to have just photos right now.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. I tried to click on it. It didn't.
I know.
Welcome back. Good to see you. It's all right. Is the Easter crowd, or are we really getting this big?
Oh, I forgot. I feel like
She's chocolate.
Can I go back now, Dad?
Susan, go back? Yeah, go back.
What a wild riot of beauty and shape and color and diversity. I love it. Thank you all so much for your abundance. What a blessing. Please rise as you are willing and able. We're able to sing with us our next hymn, My Life Goes On. It's hymn number 108. And as we sing, any children who'd like to join me in Mary's faith. Thank you.
28 in the back of the grade hymnal. We'll read this responsibly. In the tomb of the soul, we carry secret yearning, pain, frustration, loneliness, fears, regrets, and worries.
In the tomb of the soul, we take refuge from the world and its heaviness.
In the tomb of the soul, we wrap ourselves in the security of darkness.
Sometimes this is a comfort, sometimes it is an escape.
Sometimes it prepares us for experience. Sometimes it insulates us from life.
Sometimes this tomb life gives us time to feel the pain of the world and reach out to heal others. Sometimes it numbs us and locks us up with our own concerns.
In this season where light and dark balance the day, we seek balance for ourselves.
Grateful for the darkness that has nourished us, we push away the stone and invite the light to awaken us to the possibilities within us and among us. Possibilities for new life in ourselves and in our world.
It's second Sunday, and we have someone we've enjoyed many, many times. David Reid loves all kinds of music and plays piano, guitar, and sings. He completed a Bachelor of Music in Music Therapy from the University of Georgia back in the day. I picked songs that spoke of the coming of the light, or springtime, or were about longing or wishing for a better tomorrow. I have always played music for enjoyment, never as a career, even though I obtained a music degree. It has consistently been something that has enriched my life, says David. So thank you very much.
Well, the little boy went first day of school, got some crayons and started to draw. He put colors all over the paper, 'cause colors was what he saw. And the teacher said, "What you doing, young man?" "I'm painting flowers," he said. "Well, this is not the time for art, young man. But anyway, flowers are green and red. There's a time for everything, young man, and a way things should be done. You got to show concern for everyone else, or you're not the only one." And she said, "Flowers are red, young man. Green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen." What the little boy said, "There are so many colors in the rainbow, so many colors in the morning sun, so many colors in a flower, and I see every one." Well, the teacher said, "You're sassy, there's a way that things should be, and you'll paint flowers the way they are, so repeat after me." And she said, "Flowers are red, young man. Green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen." But the little boy said, "There are so many colors in the rainbow, so many colors in the morning sun, so many colors in a flower, and I see every one." Well, the teacher said, "You're sassy, there's a way that things should be, and you'll paint flowers the way they are, so repeat after me." And the teacher put him in a corner. She said it's for your own good. And you won't come out till you get it right, all responding like you should. Well, the little boy, he got lonesome, frightening thoughts filled his head. And he went up to the teacher, and this is what he said. And he said, flowers are red, green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen. Well, time went by like it always does, and they moved to another town. And the little boy went to a different school, and this is what he found. Well, the teacher there was smiling. She said, painting should be fun. And there are so many colors in a flower, so let's use every one. But that little boy painted flowers in neat rows of green and red. And when the teacher asked him why, this is what he said. And he said, flowers are red, green leaves are green. There's no need to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen. Well, we can't leave it there, can we? So wouldn't it be great if we could all teach our children that there are so many colors in the rainbow, so many colors in the morning sun, so many colors in the flowers, so let's see every one.
All right, this is the time in the service when we invite you to come up and share a joy, a concern. Diane is the fire keeper. Your fire will be lit, I believe. Come, the floor is yours.
Sharing a story from only all people. My dear friend Nancy, I've loved her for many, many years. And she sent this information to me a few days ago. My brother and sister-in-law were struck by a car and killed Friday night. So we are all in shock and trying to be there for each other, and especially their son.
Hi, I'm Jackie, and I would like to light 2 candles today. First, a candle of sorrow for my sister Kay, who lost her dear dog Sophie this week. They've been constant companions for 16 years, and she's pretty heartbroken. And the second is a candle of joy. Today is my granddaughter Scarlett's 15th birthday, and I got to spend a day with my grandchildren this week, first time in a long time, and it was a wonderful day. So that's a happy day.
My name is Jim, and I'd like to light a candle of thanks to Tina Rosado, who had dinner with my wife last night. We're in waiting mode for her surgery on the 25th, so we're reaching out to friends and connecting. And one way of doing that for me is remembering our time with Finley, our first foster son. So I wrote this poem for him. Wild violets, since it's Flower Day. Wild violets in the field below our ridge, coloring my world. Remember when you gave one to Granny, doing so made her day? I miss daily strolls together to the playground, other times with you. Are there any such flowers in your life these days, coloring your world? If so, send violets so that I know you remember our time together.
I'm Andy, and some of you know or will remember that 2 months ago, my friend Tracy had hip replacement surgery, and it did not go as well as she hoped, so she ended up in Care Partners and then back in the hospital and so forth. And as a neighbor and friend, I've been scooping the litter box and feeding the cats and things. And the other day, I think on Thursday, I went by her house to bring some stuff, and I have a key, so I rang the bell and opened the door, and she came from the living room down the hall to greet me without even a cane. Wow. And I felt so wonderful. She's still got a limp, but she was walking again without a cane, so that's a joy for Easter, for celebration for both of us.
I'm Marty Saltzman. Just a quick sorrow. You may not be aware that currently the American Civil Liberties Union is tracking 459 or 52 pieces of anti-LGBTQ legislation in state legislatures. So if you have a little spare change or you want to make a difference in that regard, you can send the ACLU a few pennies. Thank you.
I'm Bear.
Hi.
Kind of story. I want to light a candle of joy because October 18th, 1980, I stubbed out my last cigarette on the survey marker for a piece of land I bought on the Canadian border. I sold it the other day, and now I'm a thousandaire again.
Hi, I'm Annie, and speaking of hip replacements, I'm having another one on the 18th. And I did this last year on the other hip and ended up in bed for 8 weeks. So I'm hoping that this one goes better, and if it doesn't, that at least it doesn't get worse, doesn't go worse. And I won't be here for quite a while until I can walk. So see you later.
I'm Sally. As some of you know, I have 3 sons, and one of them has had issues since he was a teenager. He's now 30 years old, and we had had a bit of a falling out maybe a month or 2 ago, a couple months ago probably, and hadn't really communicated after that for quite a while. But he called me night before last, and this is a guy who it's hard to pull words out of him sometimes. He just talked and talked and talked about everything that was going on in his life and things that he's considering. And it was just really nice to have that. And I know it was partly because it was near Easter. And he's a very spiritual person, not Christian, he's a Hindu, but it was just a really nice phone call to get.
Trying to think. That's that noise. Anybody have anything to add to that? I will say this. For those of you, I mean, you know, when we gather and we have this time, because it is sacred time, you get the ups and downs and the ins and outs of life, and each of us has our narrative. And it's difficult to be a human being. It's difficult to be a good human being. And I think that's what makes this time so special. So for any of you who, for whatever reason, chose not to come up, know that we keep you in our thoughts and in our prayers and meditations. And that's really all that needs to be said. Thank you, guys.
Michael, your hair is hitting your lavalier mic and it's, can you, not on the other side.
Thank you. I'm just gonna let it out, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, while I do that, let us make time for prayer and meditation. So please center yourselves as you see fit, and I'll get this done. And in the meantime, let's be still. This is called Easter is Paradox, and I thought it was apropos. We'll have our time of quiet after the meditation. Easter is paradox. It is the leap over the chasm between life and death, between victory and defeat, and between joy and sorrow. Easter holds together reality of crucifixion and myth of resurrection, the Jesus of history and the Christ of faith. Those who lose their lives for others will be saved. Those who save their lives for self will be lost. Love is real, but only when we give it away. Love hoarded melts as inevitably as spring snow. In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. And now, while our minds are one for this brief moment, I will leave you with the eloquence of silence. And so it is. The Prophet Muhammad, blessed be he, reminds us that we cannot want for ourselves what we don't want for others. And so with that in mind, we will not collect this morning's offering.
down. We're captive on the carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came and go round and round and round in the circle again. Then the child moved 10 times round the seasons, skated over 10 clear frozen streams. Words like when you're older must appear still, and promises of someday make his dreams. And the seasons, they go round and round, the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on the carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came and go round and round and round in the circle game. 16 springs and 16 summers gone now. Cartwheels turn to cartwheels through the town, and they tell him, take your time, it won't be long now, till you drag your feet to slow the circle down. So the seasons, they go round and round, the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on the carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came and go round and round and round in the circle game. So the years spin by, and now the boy is 20. Though his dreams have lost some grandeur coming true, there'll be new dreams, maybe better dreams and plenty, before the last revolving year is through. And the seasons, they go round and round, the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on the carousel of time. We can't return, we can only look behind from where we came and go round and round and round in a circle game.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, I got some bad jokes. These are really bad. Yes, thank you, Judy. And I just want you to know that these are not mine. If you like them, they're mine. If you don't like them, my wife Dawn gave me them. They're terrible. What do you call the funniest guest at Easter dinner? Easter ham. I know, see?
Easter ham.
I'm gonna be looking for a job one day. What's the Easter Bunny's favorite restaurant? Here's one. What is the Easter Bunny's favorite kind of music?
Hip hop.
Thank you. Just don't throw a shoe or anything. All right, let's hop to it. This is, for those of you who are new to Unitarian Universalism, And for those of you who aren't, I threw a lot of stuff in here, but it'll make sense. The thing is, for any UU Christians in the house, because we do have UU Christians, this is not a repudiation. I just want to set up how we got here. So long before there was a Jewish or Christian religion, before Passover or Easter, long before any religions, as we knew them, existed, before anyone even wrote anything down, human beings, men and women, gathered to witness and to greet the coming of spring with joyful celebration. And, well, let's be honest, it may not just have been human beings. Sentient beings gathered to celebrate. Someone mentioned today, Jackie, about how after 2 days, the sun is out, and we all feel good about that. Winter could be frightening for our ancestors, it could be frightening for us. Each day, the sun gave less and less light, and it stayed in the sky for shorter periods of time. I'm sure this would have given our ancestors pause, and perhaps they asked, what would happen if the sun didn't come back? What would happen if the sun just faded away entirely? What if it slipped down behind the mountain or sea and was just too weak to ever rise again? The waning of the sun brought on extreme cold, and vegetation died, and birds and other animals just seemed to disappear. And yet, the sun did return each year, and it became stronger than it once was, as more vegetation and fruits and flowers continued to bloom and to grow. This meant life would continue, and the sun and its great power to make things grow was not only appreciated, but it was celebrated. David sang, "Here comes the sun." Spring was and is the season of celebration. In the midst of winter, our ancestors could proclaim, along with existentialist philosopher Albert Camus, that in the midst of winter, I discovered within me an invincible summer. And that's a good feeling. Spring was the time to celebrate fertility. It was vital to the tribe in order to keep the species going. In Neolithic and Paleolithic times, fertility was the chief subject in art and religion, as people sought to influence and ensure the continuity of the species. Of nature, not just the species, of the earth itself. And to date, the oldest religious objects that we have ever discovered are fertility figures of the Mother Goddess. The oldest. So as time progressed, people went from hunter-gatherer mode to agriculture, and the Mother Goddess became the Earth Goddess, and later became the mother of the dying god, just like vegetation, who just like vegetation is born again, anew, with springtime. The god who died and rose again, symbolizing the agricultural cycle, became a widespread religious concept. The death and resurrection theme is certainly not exclusive to one religion or culture. And just as Eckhart Tolle reminds us, the opposite of life is not death. The opposite of birth is death. Life has no opposite. Quantum physics is just finding this out. Why? Because consciousness survives. Even the egg and the bunny rabbit. Don't do it. I'm trying to get through this. Symbols that today are associated with the Christian festival of Easter are obviously much older than Christianity and well known in ancient times as symbols of fertility. The rabbit, or hare, was the symbol of the womb, and according to legend, the hare, which is born with its eyes open, blinked or closed its eyes, which many interpreted as the symbol of everlasting and ongoing life. In Egyptian, it's called it's spelled UN. It means open. It means opening. Like the moon, the hare was nocturnal, and it has a reproductive cycle of about a month. And so the egg is a universal symbol. And as such, it is represented in many cultures as the originator of life. Now, I know our neighbors down the street are not talking about it. And you don't have to go and tell them about it if you don't want to. Because we'll just try to get along. But there's an ancient proverb that states that all life comes from the egg. The peoples of Polynesia, ancient India, Indonesia, Iran, Greece, Phoenicia, on Finland, Central America, the west coast of South America, they all have myths of a cosmic egg, and an egg which gave birth to the entire universe. And so we see the spring, the coming of the sun, the renewal of the fertility cycle has been honored and celebrated throughout human history. Now, Judaism and Christianity, because of the deep power of those rites, and it became an integral part of the human psyche, they were incorporated into Judaism and Christianity. It doesn't make them any less real. But this is where it came from. And even with our science and weather forecast, with Al Roker and the Weather Channel, even when the forecast is wrong, as they sometimes are, we in the 21st century still react to the coming of spring the way our ancestors did. For us, as for them, spring is a symbol of hope. It is a symbol of renewal and rebirth and regeneration. Both Judaism and Christianity have their particulars regarding their theologies. For the Jewish faith, Passover, which we just celebrated a few days ago, is the liberation from the oppression of the Egyptians and the beginning of their covenant with their God. For Christians, Easter tells the story of the resurrection with its wide range of interpretations, from the literal to the metaphoric. Both traditions share a story of hope. Hope for what, you say? Hope for a better time to come. Whether or not whether or not you believe the story, if people rise again after being nailed to Roman crosses, that's really not the point. If you don't believe virgins have babies, that's really not the point. The point is that if we can take the universal human need for hope from the stories, then the stories become clear. Remember when we talked about atheism, and oh God, forget the brother's name, I messed it up, he was French. He said that atheists who are still asking whether God is real, they've missed the boat. That's an old question. That's a different point of departure. And so if you still, you got a bug about whether you believe this stuff, don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not really worth that. Though I've heard it said, because it's all about hope, and I've heard it said in a certain context that, and this is true, hoping is not a process. That's all we have. That's our strongest link to human history, is that we do hope, because hope connects us to each other with something larger than ourselves. Hope enables us to commit to being the best we can, to love, and to care, and to nurture, and to live our principles. This is what our ancestors did. So, hope is the ultimate meaning of life. So cycles of birth and death, they exist in nature on all levels, from the universe, right, to the multiverse actually, to our galaxy, to our planet Earth, to the four seasons, to our individual lives. We measure our lives. We look at the seasons of our lives, and even in body, mind, and spirit. So all of these things move through the cycle of regeneration and rebirth and renewal. We always want answers, but the universe is just so vast that we will never really comprehend it. We can question, we can wonder, but we can't really know. And there's a spirituality to that, because not only do you don't have to know everything, but you can wind up being a spectator to life. Life is not a problem to be solved, right? Kierkegaard tells us it's a mystery to be lived. And so we celebrate the spring. The Easter story has many of the elements in it of life. The word Easter originates from the Anglo-Saxon, Estri. Her festival was celebrated, her festival, when God was a woman, as it were, before the vernal equinox. There's also an obvious connection with Easter with the word east, where we have our sun rituals. We clear? Now we get to UUism. The most critical part of Easter for Universalists and Unitarians, but for Universalists, is the power within the heart of each individual to bring life out of death. In the resurrection story, there is humiliation. What this man went through probably wasn't on a Friday night in real life with Passover, but what he went through the weekend. And then after that, it's humiliation and death. But in the end, what? New life is created. For us, it can mean the confronting of our own wounds, the deep scars that we've grown up with, that we've suffered, and allowing ourselves to be transformed and reborn, if you will. You don't have to take the story literally, but you can look at it from a universal perspective. We can roll away the stone from where? From our hearts and our minds. And let the energy of a new life, a resurrected life, emerge. The central message for most religious liberals, and I'm assuming you are, otherwise you really wouldn't be here, not unless you're slowing. The central message for most religious liberals is the human potential to overcome serious or personal loss or failure and to live a more authentic life. When we think of the earth's ability, along with our own, to regenerate ourselves, to join forces with others, to overcome the human propensity towards violence and fear, the meaning of Easter is very powerful for Unitarian Universalists. Now let's talk about the Unitarians. Our Unitarian faith was founded in the 1550s in Transylvania. It was an anti-Trinitarian form of Christianity. God is one. We have it written back there, and I think that's Czechoslovakia, Transylvania, up on the wall there. God is one. And that's the language that was used at the time. The earliest Unitarian churches were established on the belief that Jesus was fully human and not divine, or at least not any divinity that was in Jesus is in us. In the 1500s, to say that, I would be in trouble. In the 21st century, in some places, I would be. But this is what the Unitarians believe. And to make him divine takes away from his message. Because the things he did, you can say, well, I'm not a God, so I can't do that. And so what we've done, and we've made Jesus a rock star, Jesus Christ superstar. Instead of following his teachings, we worship his personality. It's probably not hard to do. Seem like a very charismatic brother. If you weren't wrong. I mean, these people play hardball. These early Unitarians believed that to be a Christian was to follow the teachings of Jesus. What a concept. Not to worship and adore him. And needless to say, Unitarians were persecuted and declared heretics to this belief. So there's no escaping the fact that Universalism and Unitarianism is a part of the Protestant Reformation. A lot of us don't like to be reminded of that, but Malcolm X reminds us, you can't hate the roots without hating the tree. We are part of the Protestant Reformation. Both traditions are a more liberal form of Christianity. Universalism is intense because you're supposed to love your enemies. A lot of African American slaves were like, I can't go there. You're going to tell me that Master's going to be in heaven with me after he's working me like this? I don't think so. So it's a deep spirituality with universalism. The traditional accounts of the birth of Jesus and of the resurrection are sometimes included in our celebrations. You're here on Easter. We talk about Jesus and crucifixion, sometimes more or less, depending on what year and what I can get in my mind. On Christmas, we'll be talking about the birth of Jesus in some context. But we tweak it. The birth of a child, whether born in Kandahar or Black Mountain or New York City, is a sacred time, and it's a promise of new life. The crucifixion and resurrection are symbolic of new life that can emerge from pain and suffering. Now, many UUs, not all UUs, celebrate Easter. And Jesus that's the part of the message. And not just in Christian UU churches, we have some Christian UUs here. But they are symbolic. We don't necessarily believe in the physical resurrection of Jesus. Neither did Dr. King. Neither did Howard Thurman or the late John Shelby Spong. They didn't. Most UUs regard Jesus as one of a number of especially gifted, insightful teachers of humanity. And these leaders come every now and then in the course of history to teach us how we should treat each other. And we beat them up and kill them, or we just make a mess, but they keep coming. So Jesus is not considered unique, and well, maybe they stopped. I don't know. And if they did, that's good, because now we have to do it. Now we have to do it. People say, well, life, is a lesson. But you know what? School's out. School is out. Now you got to apply your lessons. Now you have to apply them. You can't just go, well, I'm still in school. School's out. Pick up a newspaper. Well, you see, I'm dating myself. Look at your phone. I have some newspapers at home. So his death reflects a tragic and painful end. But because you have we don't get into original sin. We do not believe that Jesus atoned for the sins of the world. So that has little relevance for us. But even when Unitarianism and Universalism were clearly Christian faiths, we rejected the doctrine of atonement. We can look at it as at one thing. I kind of like that better. But Universalism says that the greatest power in the universe is love, period. And all-encompassing love. Hitler is saved, Pol Pot is saved, Donald Trump is saved. See me after class. Stormy Daniels is saved. And now America is saved. No. America is saved by a porn star. I love it. But they believed that love was the source of all harmony, and that if this world was to be saved, and I'm using the language of the time, that we would have to embrace that. And so there's no everlasting hell. People do not go to hell. A loving God, if you believe in a God, does not barbecue you for eternity for the mistakes that you made. So this love would be the remedy of all sin. So if no action can separate us from this love of God, then no human being can either. Yada, yada, yada. We have yada, yada. Okay. Because it's late. All can be took a while. In this way, this love can make the resurrection a reality in our lives. No longer is old wine poured into new wineskins. We are all raised from the dead. And the traditional cry of "He lives" now becomes "We live." The traditional cry of "He is risen" now becomes "We are risen." This is a UU Easter. This is the meaning of Easter and the universal need for hope. But otherwise, you would have to sit through 3 or 4 more pages. So, happy Easter, amen, ashe, and blessed. It always sounds better on Saturday. So, if you will rise as you are willing and able, and join us in our closing hymn, number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning. We can't forget Mother Earth. Let us show Brother David Reid and the maestro from God. And you know, we need to show Evan some love because if, you know, if he didn't do this, nobody would know we were even here. All right, closing words by Universalist Hosea Blue. If we agree in love, there is no disagreement that can do us any harm. But if we do not, there's no agreement that will do us any good. Happy Easter.